And I was going to
whatever.
ask about the breeds, like what makes a good canine for police work? Does it matter that, I mean,
The
it sounds like
dog that will
most of
do
them,
its job and be passionate about it is
but
what makes.
how do you know that? Do these companies that do they take them from birth and they sort of put them
No,
through a set of,
when they go to Europe, they'll go through a picking process.
Mhm.
And so we consider a dog a puppy up until 18 months to 2 years,
Okay.
because most of the dogs will start getting imprinted at, let's say, 9 months. Some of them as early as birth, they'll start giving them scents and having them play with things. If they've got a high food drive or something like
Got it.
that, they'll put a tug, like a burlap tug.
Mhm.
And if that puppy, at 8 weeks, you see them latch on. You're like, wow, they really have a lot of drive.
Mm.
And so they'll get to go and pick them out. And maybe in a school, they may say, you know, the the German Shepherd you have here to the vendor is, we really like that dog, but he's got a black face, or his eyes look a little scary. We're going to go with the golden retriever. And
Mm.
that's fine. I mean, they can choose whatever they want. And people maybe feel less threatened by they call it floppy eared dog.
Right.
And so that makes a huge difference. So then what, that dog has maybe had the basics from that vendor. So they're potty trained, they can sit and stay, but they're waiting for you to tell them, hey, we'd like this dog imprinted on drugs, or we'd like it imprinted on firearms.
Got
And
it.
so they may not, they have some dogs that are completely finished. You walk in and say, I'd like that supermodel,
Mhm.
and I would like Miss October, and I would like, the one with all the titles and the awards. And okay, that's fine too.
Right.
So they can go in and choose whatever they want, and then they start the process together. And
I
so
see.
then that training lasts about 10 to 12 weeks.
Okay. Which
And then,
again is where they're really solidifying
yes, they're bond
their
together.
relationship, their bond. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so then they'll go through that together. And, then, everybody graduates at the end, and we'll have our donors come and, bring their family, and they feel a connection. I mean, it's so great after we went through what we did, defunding the police, and we saw how that went.
Mhm.
And but to have, I feel like the market almost is like the real stock market. We kind of go on highs and lows of what the media turns us towards.
Mm.
And so, you will see maybe somebody has captured a uh, vehicle extraction. I don't know, for some reason, we get a lot out of California. People, down the 405, and all of a sudden you'll see a dog fly in the side of a car, to pull a guy out. And
Mhm.
so people see an 8-second clip, and, it's like going to the Super Bowl. If you see, you know, uh, Travis, Kelsey throw somebody to the ground, you go, yeah, that's what he does. He tackles people.
Right.
Well, he does a lot more than that. And that's exactly what these dogs do.
Right.
So I think people that have misnomers judge from those short clips, or, see something like that and say, oh, no, no, they're aggressive. No, they're not.
Right.
Now some can be, certainly, but these guys, you're talking, they devote, it's almost like having an extra job,
Mm.
just taking care of the dog, training with the dog. They spend more time with that dog than they will their spouse.
Right. Right.
And then the dog goes home with them at
But they
night.
do bring the dogs home and the dogs sleep
Yes.
in their home and know their families. So
Hmm.
there is a domestic part to it and they're treated, people pet them, right? I mean,
Yes. And
yeah.
look, I'm not gonna, because I'll have some people out here in the industry going, oh my God, she makes everybody sound like Lassie. Look, there is a time and a place for everything. And we do have some dogs that I would say you're not going to have that dog serve as a pet hanging out on your couch while
Sure.
you watch football.
Right.
When that gate opens and he sees dad with a leash and he's got to get into a certain car, he knows it's game time.
Mm.
And these dogs get very hyped up. So we want to make sure that they try to separate this is their job and this is their home, because you don't want somebody to get lax. And next thing you know, maybe a toddler is pulling an ear or something like that. And you think, oh, my dog's safe. And, somebody gets a nip.
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting too is you see these, well, you hear a lot of stories about people who take pit bulls, for example,
Mhm.
and just almost treat them pretty poorly and treat them to be aggressive, because they think that that is what serves as being a protector or protecting their family or protective in general. And I think we see a lot of that backfire because of this stigma that pit bulls are scary animals and not safe. I don't believe that. I have two pit bulls. I have a young daughter. I feel very safe.
Right.
And two of them I got at rescues, and I knew that they were abused. At least one of them was tied to a pole, had staples in her head. It clearly has some issues with needing affection
Right.
from men, and obviously had an issue with men. Is more scared of men.
Right.
Um, but it's also different. Like I've had trainers, scary trainers to me, they're scary.
Right.
And they do not train my dog to be a biter, but they are also training their dogs in a way where their dogs are mostly kept in a cage. They take them out, they do the biting with them, they do like all these commands with them, which I
Right.
don't understand because I want to cuddle with my dog.
Right.
But it's a different type of training, of course. And which gets me to actually what I want to talk about. You talked about firearms. Is it about the smell of the gunpowder? How would they alert on a firearm?
Yes. And I have to tell you, when it clicked for me after watching a million hours worth of training, I was in training all afternoon yesterday,
Mm,
watching, I was, I was at one of our vendors in Southern California, and we had taken the team and gone to LAX, and the international terminal, I think it's E for them,
mm,
but people were getting off of the planes coming in, but this is all people coming in from Dubai, from
mm.
Pakistan, and I had never seen certain kiosks, like the really like Brazilian coffee. In other words, you have a lot of the different smells and
Right.
things that are coming in, and you see the people getting off. And we had again the mobile odor detection dogs, and they were going through, and this one dog that we had kept hitting on a wheelchair, and it was a little old lady in the wheelchair. And I'm like, okay, well, she's not a terrorist.
Mm,
I'm like, is our dog messing up? Like, so it's hit on this wheelchair again. So then another flight comes in, and the wheelchairs have like serial numbers on the back, maybe it's
mm.
001 LAX or something. Well, I noticed that now it's an old man in the wheelchair, and the dog keeps going back and stopping at the wheelchair. And I'm like, okay, I know that they don't have anything. Well, this was a Monday. Apparently, on Sundays is the day that maintenance at LAX works on the wheelchairs, is one of the things, but they oil them and, maintain them, like fix the
Right.
tires and whatever they need to do.
Sure.
The same oil that they use on that is the oil that you use on your gun to clean it.
Wow.
And I was like,
Well, that shows
holy,
how amazing their sense of smell is, but it also shows that they can make mistakes, which is what I brought up to you off air.
Mhm.
And I want to talk about that for a second. A friend of mine has a security company that, deals with high flow areas. And they,
events.
events, and they mostly are they're hiring that extra level of protection with getting canines. And they had said to me recently, I've hesitated now on doing it because we've found a couple times that the dog has hit on something, and we've cleared out a huge section of people only
Right.
to find that it is a mistake. And so is that about the training? So many new smells of things that are terrible are upgraded or can be changed so many times, or like, what does that mean? How do they fix that so it can be 100% of the time they're getting it right, or can it
Well,
not?
it's training, of course, it's how attuned. It's almost like, do you remember we were little and Fred and Ginger, and they watched them dancing together, ballroom dancing, and they just look, or like Dancing with the Stars, and it's just everything looks in unison.
Sure.
That's how the level to what these guys train.
Mm.
So they have to, obviously dogs can't talk, so they have to really watch their dogs. And, when they catch on something and they smell a smell, they lock in, and it's called a passive alert. Okay. You can see a dog when it starts to get a little more excited, the hair kind of raises up a little bit, the eyes get
Mhm.
a little wild, and now he's locked in on that smell, and he's sweeping and, going at a pretty high rate of speed. Maybe the handlers, they want to sweep out a room. Let's say you have the Republican National Convention.
Sure. Yeah.
And so they're in there, and they're in there a couple of times a day, making sure that, everything's up to status quo.
Mm.
And now all of a sudden that they have to watch that dog's command. That, other words, wait, we're running along and I locked on something. And then maybe the dog moves on a little bit and then comes back.
Mm.
And like, let's double check this. And, or maybe they've smelled that scent and it's a plume and it's coming in, it's mobile.
Mm.
And so that officer has to figure out, okay, he's locked in on something. So we have something in this area. And again, one of the things, like I mentioned earlier, that these dogs have such great smell that they can smell days after
Right.
something was there. So, and a lot of times when you go to rent a dog, let's say for an event,
That's right. That's
or
what I'm doing, yeah.
the school says, I'm going to call the ABC K9 company, and they're
Mm.
going to send a dog twice a year, and we're
Mm.
not going to tell you when it's going to sweep at the school.
Right.
Well, again, is that dog in training? How old is it? Is it green? Is the handler green?
Right.
Are they training together? In other words, what are you getting? What are
Right.
you getting for what you're purchasing? So if you say, I only want a finished dog, nobody's going to ask for that.
Mm.
And I want a handler that's been doing this for at least 5 years, but they're not. So they're getting people that are young, that are going through the program, and
Right.
they're learning on the job too, but they're just learning on your dime.